Is RJ Harvey the best running back in UCF history, and how do you replace him?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. Joining me, as he always does on this Monday, post-holidays, is my guy, Andrew Gluchov from The Last Word on Sports. Andrew, before we get into it, how was your holiday?
It was good. As you know, I am of the Jewish persuasion. So we celebrated Hanukkah, which just happened to line up with Christmas this year. And we always have a Laka Fest with all sorts of unique fried items. And it's been good. It's been good. At least, you all who celebrate Christmas get that one big day, and we just get, 8 little nights.
Well, UCF hoping for some gifts under the tree this portal season, Andrew. One thing that's not a gift is RJ Harvey leaving. RJ Harvey is done. He has decided to pursue his career at the next level. But I want to ask a simple question. We talked about this before we started recording. The question simple: is RJ Harvey the best running back in UCF history? Let's take a look at his stats here. You made a compelling argument for another one, but RJ Harvey this season, 232 yards, 1,577 yards on the ground, 22 touchdowns. That's 6.8 yards per carry. We didn't put it on this graphic, Andrew, but 6.8 is actually insane in my book. So RJ Harvey, also in the passing game, he had 20 receptions for 3 touchdowns and 267 yards. What do you think about RJ Harvey here in this best in school history conversation?
Well, this is actually a very divisive conversation, within the fan base. Obviously, the ones who have seen him run will say that Kevin Smith was the best, with his 2007 run, where he set the NCAA record for most carries in a season. He finished at the time second all time in single season yardage. Ashton Genty should pass that mark with, I think, 70 yards or 71 yards during their next game. But then there are people more recently who say RJ Harvey is. Now, it's really interesting because Kevin Smith was kind of I don't want to say a one-hit wonder, but his numbers in previous seasons were not as strong as RJ Harvey's overall
body of work. His body of work.
Body of work. Yeah, body of work. Yeah, I had a moment where I was going to say book. I was like, that's not right. But his body, RJ Harvey's body work is more spread out and more consistent. You talk about his 6.8 yards per carry. RJ Harvey finished his career with 6.5 yards per carry. So I mean that over 6 yards per carry was consistent across the board through the 3+ years that he ran at UCF. I don't count, the 3 rushes he had in 2020. That's really nothing. But from 22 through 24, where he was either the guy or the second guy, he averaged over 6 yards a carry. That says something for itself. You can't argue that. Where Harvey excelled more than Smith was receiving the ball. Kevin Smith wasn't a bad receiver. He just wasn't utilized as a receiver. And it was those 4 career touchdowns that Harvey had to go with the 43 rushing touchdowns to eclipse Kevin Smith as the all-time total touchdown leader at UCF, while Smith still holds the rushing record for touchdowns at UCF. So, I mean, you can look at each one and say, well, this guy had a better single season. This guy maybe had a better career, spread out a little bit more. Part of it is also UCF talent-wise is a lot better in 2024 than they were in 2007, where they were a Conference USA squad. That was the year they won their first ever conference championship. They just opened the on-campus stadium. So it's almost apples to oranges. It's comparing LeBron to Michael. You're talking 2 generations, very different playing style and all that stuff. So it's hard to compare the two.
I want to make a point though about again conference USA versus the Big 12, and in my mind, I think is it harder to be a running back today than it was back then? There's almost no such thing. You don't. Well, let me not say no such thing, but the bell cow back, the guy that you handed to 30, 40 times a game, that's kind of been eliminated from football on all levels. It's rare to see. You see running back by committee a lot. And so for a guy to get enough carries to be in that conversation is somewhat rare because, you're trying to keep your running backs healthy.
Right. And this was a thing at UCF in 2024. Going in, it was supposed to be a running back by committee. You had 4 guys between Harvey, Johnny Richardson, who was a holdover, and then transfers Miles Montgomery and Penny Boone. It was supposed to be the 4 horsemen. And as the season wore on, it stopped being that. And it largely was Harvey and a pack of Skittles. Montgomery would come in as a change of pace back occasionally. Johnny Richardson would come in occasionally. But the bulk of the work was all on Harvey. It wasn't the committee that we originally anticipated it to be as the season wore on.
Yeah. Is he the best? I think it's a hard debate. It's hard to know, how Kevin Smith would have done in today's college football. Always comparing across eras is really, really difficult, Andrew. So, whenever we try to do it, kind of like the LeBron versus Jordan debate, would Jordan have been able to play in today's NBA? I would make an argument that the average athlete is way more athletic today than it was when Jordan played. The advent of sports nutrition and sports science is making kids freaks at like a really, really young age. I think it's a lot more competitive now. And, in terms of being able to stay healthy, we talked about that with RJ. Guys who can keep their bodies healthy for an entire career, even becoming rare, and making it through 3 or 4 years at the college football level. That's why you see them jump. I don't want to risk injury by coming back another year and risking millions. Before we close this segment, Andrew, was there enough? We talked about this before we started recording. He had a chance. RJ did. It looks like to come back for another year, possibly.
Well, it's hard to say. I believe he actually could have if he wanted to, because he had 3 playing years. He could have they had the 2020 redo. He would apply for a medical red shirt for 21.
Correct, yes.
And then he had the 2019 red shirt year as a freshman at Virginia. So if he went for the medical red shirt in 21, which he would have gotten because he didn't play it all that year, he missed the whole year. He would have had 1 more year of eligibility if he really wanted to. But it looks like he's ready to move on. As we know, shelf life in the NFL as a running back is pretty short. And look what happened to Kevin Smith. He ran over 400 times that last year, his junior year in 2007. He thought about coming back in 2008, realized, my NFL shelf life is short. And that year actually cut it short because he became more injury prone as a result of just being run into the ground. So I think RJ recognizes that, this is my time. I'm ready to move on. He's you start in 2019 in college. It's just the end of 2024. He's ready to move on with his life. I don't blame him. You don't have to stay another year if you don't have to. If you can, you don't have to. I don't blame him. I don't think anything less of him. It's time to move on. It's your life. Go live it.
Yeah. It makes you wonder a little bit if there were enough NIL dollars in that bucket to maybe entice him to coming back for the first year of Scott Frost's return. But hey, look, we want RJ to do what's best for RJ in this day and age, and he felt like that was moving on. So wish him well. After a quick word from our sponsors, we're going to talk about what it's going to take to replace RJ Harvey. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. Hopefully, RJ is using Rocket Money when he starts cashing those NFL checks. But look, Rocket Money will help you find subscriptions, Andrew, that you didn't know you still had and you're still paying for, which sometimes can total into the hundreds of dollars. Do you have any subscriptions that you found out you were paying for that you didn't know?
Not only do I is the answer yes, but I also use Rocket Money to help renegotiate rates to a lower rate.
A lot of people love the subscription tracker. That's a great feature that you mentioned there. Look, cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. Again, that's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Replacing RJ Harvey. So we talked about the great single season that we had, and for our listeners listening on pod, I just want to make sure that we reiterate 232 carries for 1,577 yards and 22 touchdowns. He added 20 receptions for 3 touchdowns through the air against 267 yards. But for his career, because this was a career guy, when you start talking about best in school history, you've got to look at the whole picture here. You're talking about a guy who rushed for 3,792 yards in his career at UCF, 43 touchdowns, Andrew. And that yard per carry average held up over the course of his career. So he wasn't just a one-season wonder. 6.5 yards per carry is actually nuts. That's crazy. For reference, we looked at the stats here. We looked at the stats overall. He had 232 carries on the season. Ashton Jeanty, who finished as the runner-up for the Heisman, had 344 carries on the season for his ridiculous amount of yards. Obviously, he's still going. But at his yards per carry, if you fill that 122 carry gap, he might actually challenge Jeanty. If the yards per carry hold, he might challenge Jeanty for most rushing yards this season. How do you replace that? How do you replace a guy like RJ Harvey if you're Scott Frost?
Well, you can't replace him. All you can do is just kind of make do, and it's being the guy to replace the guy. It's the Ron Zook situation. Even a good running back is not gonna live up to the expectations. And so this is I see this is going to be a little more of a chance to kind of hit the reset button. You're changing your offensive mindset. You're probably going to be using a little more more speed as far as huddle time and stuff to try to throw your opponents off, as opposed to out talenting them. Because I don't know UCF's offense is going to out talent a lot of teams in year one. They're going to have to find other ways to move the ball and win games. But you've got a couple of holdovers and then an incoming freshman that could have an impact. The first guy we got to talk about is Miles Montgomery. He was part of that 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. You had 2. You had him. You had Harvey. Obviously, you had Johnny Richardson. You had Penny Boone. 3 of the 4 are gone. Miles Montgomery is the only guy left, and so he kind of takes the proverbial driver's seat. And then you have Cam Ingram, who was a transfer from I think it was Bethune-Cookman, and he's been on the bench the last couple of years as just a depth guy. He has 6 career carries. He had 2 last year. Really didn't do a whole lot. Whether he breaks in or not. But the guy that's really interesting is the incoming freshman Tavion Swint, a 4-star running back out of local guy out of Kissimmee. This is all the ingredients to replicate what RJ Harvey's recipe for success is. 5'9", 185 pounds. This is a compact guy.
Yeah,
get a little extra muscle on him. If you can get him to closer to 200. He becomes a little wrecking ball of a guy.
Yeah. Low center of gravity for sure.
Very. Yeah. And, I remember watching, guys like Warwick Dunn, small players, very low to the ground, very hard to tackle. It worked well for RJ Harvey. Swint's got a lot of, good praise coming in, fast guy, ran track, but he wants to be a hometown hero. And that's one of the things that Gus really pushed during his time is the hometown hero mentality. And I think Frost is going to be able to accentuate on that. And Tavion Swint, who is not a Frost guy, he obviously Gus recruited him, but Frost helped seal the deal, and keep him on board. I think they're going to rely heavily on him early on. That's one of the benefits of this moment is you're going to be able to attract players that want to come for a chance for early playing time. And I think running back is one of those that if you're built pretty well, you can get in pretty quickly. It's not like an offensive lineman job where like, you really need to bulk up. You don't have to be bulky to be a good running back.
Well, during the season, you were high on Miles Montgomery at times to spell RJ Harvey. I just want to make sure that we put his stats up for our listeners. Again, Miles Montgomery last season, 51 carries for 293 yards, Andrew. Also, he had 3 TDs on the ground. Didn't use them a ton in the passing game. 3 receptions for 66 yards and 1 touchdown. Miles Montgomery. He also averaged 5.7 yards per carry, which is nothing to sneeze at. I know it's a smaller sample size, so we're acknowledging that. But if you're Miles Montgomery, there's an opportunity here for you with a new coaching staff to step up as the incumbent. UCF did not pick up a running back in this first portal window. Now, they can still go out and get a guy. Before we started recording, you noted, look, the portal is closed, but if you're already in the portal, you can still choose a school.
Right.
Time is running out if you want to be enrolled for the spring semester. Certainly, they've got to get enrolled in school. So that's not to say that they have all the time in the world. There is a second portal window. There's been some discussion about eliminating that second portal window. I don't know how I feel about that, but it's interesting here what UCF is going to have to do. Again, a lot of yards there to replace, in the career of RJ Harvey. He was a great running back. From what we know in my interviews with people around the program, he was a really good student athlete. A good kid, good teammate. Somebody that you lose character as well too, and hard work, and a good example for other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Harvey was one of those talk quietly but carry a big stick kind of guys. He didn't speak much, but when he talked, you listened. And he had command of the locker room. Great character, great person, just absolutely wonderful to listen to. I've sat on press conferences with him. Just an absolutely wonderful guy. Think the world of him and want nothing but the best for him. As you know from your travels, there are players that you kind of elevate above others because of the off-field aspect, the way they carry themselves and all that stuff. And it's just, you just like them. RJ Harvey's one of those guys. You just like him. And you can't help but not only respect his on-field work, but respect him as a person beyond football. And he's one of those guys. That's where he's going to be really hard to replace is his character, his ability to, he doesn't have to be loud, but he commands the room. And someone's going to have to step up on the offensive side of the ball and be a leader. Kobe Hudson was a louder leader. He's gone. So someone's going to have to, be that guy to help rally the troops and whatnot. This is going to be a much younger squad. 2024 was very senior laden. Between fifth years and seniors. So there was a lot of players that are gone from the 2 deep. So UCF's got a challenge, and it's not just can they put together a good team, is can someone step up and be a leader amongst these players? And that's going to be a challenge for a guy maybe like Miles Montgomery, who's one of the older holdovers going into the 2025 season.
This is a complete rebuild for UCF. I think we can both agree that Scott Frost has on his hands. I think he's the man for the job. I'm excited about seeing what he can do. And I'm excited to cover with you, my friend, as we head through the off season into spring practice. I'm going to try to be in Orlando for some of those spring practices, to the extent that they give us good media availability. Andrew, before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
You can catch me on Twitter /X or Blue Sky at StatBoyDrew. And you can catch my writing on the Last Word on College Football, a part of the Last Word on Sports family.
Thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. For your second listen, go visit our friends at the Big 12 podcast. Our guy Drake Toll leads the conversation in conference realignment news and pulls no punches when it comes to talking about every team in the Big 12, including the UCF Knights. You can find them on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find us right here tomorrow on Locked On UCF.